Have you ever seen something like this and thought, ugh, why does math have to be so complicating or complicated? Factoring trinomials, they can feel impossible, but don't worry. I'll show you this trick that makes it way easier than you think. Now, I want you to recognize that when it comes to factoring trinomials, they're all with quadratics for the most part, at least for the scope of this video. And they are of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, you have to figure out two numbers that add to get b and multiply to get c. Now, what is the value of b in this expression over here in x squared plus 8x minus 20? Well, hopefully you guessed 8. What's the value of c? Well, that is negative 20. So we have to look for numbers that multiply to get negative 20. Now, what numbers multiply to get negative 20? Well, you got 1 and negative 20, negative 1 and positive 20, 2 and negative 10, negative 2, positive 10, 4, negative 5, and negative 4, and positive 5. Now, which one of these, all of these numbers multiply to get negative 20. What adds together? Oh, all of these numbers multiply to get negative 20. What adds together to get 8? Well, if you look correctly, it's negative 2 and positive 10. So when we factor a trinomial, we're looking for numbers that become, or at least an expression that becomes two binomials. Trinomials means three terms. Look, 1, 2, 3, and in these binomials we'll have 2. And in this case, our binomials are going to be x minus, or plus, depending on what sign it shows, but x minus 2 for our first term, and maybe you figure out the second one, x plus 10. That's all you have to do. Now, I'll show you a process in the next problem, that streamlines with some harder questions. Now, with x squared plus 7x plus 10, this is what I call the cross. I use it consistently. You're looking for numbers that multiply to get 10, add together to get 7, and this cross will show up and be a lot more nice or useful whenever we move on to harder questions. So we're looking for numbers that multiply to get 10, and I highly recommend that you do this part in your head, but I'm doing this on the video to help you learn. We're looking for numbers that multiply to get 10. That's 1 and 10. Negative 1, negative 10, 2 and 5, and negative 2, and negative 5. So what numbers add together to get 7? You guessed it, or you knew it, 2 and 5. So what do we do from here? Well, we have our two binomials, x plus 2 and x plus 5. Now, we have been given really easy problems. Specifically, these easy problems have a 1 for the coefficient of x squared. Now, what do we do when we move on to where our coefficient for the x squared, our value of a, is not 1? When a is not 1. Now, there's two different solutions, or two different things you should do. We're going to look at the first one, and that is to find the GCF. Find the GCF. You're looking for what number can be taken out, can be factored out of both 4, 28, and 40. Think a second. Maybe you know what it is. And the answer is 4. We can take a 4 out of 4x squared, leaving us with x squared. And then we can take a 4 out of 28x, leaving us with 7x. And a 4 out of 40x to leave us with 10. Next, you might recognize this is the exact same problem we just had before. So you would go through the exact same process, or you just know what we did, which is 4 times the quantity of x plus 2 times the quantity of x plus 5. Excuse my handwriting there. So that is how we go about when we can take out a GCF. But let's look at the next problem where we can't take out a GCF, and is actually probably the hardest type of problem when it comes to factoring trinomials. 6x squared minus 11x plus 4. Now, you might notice that the a is not 1 in most scenarios where you don't know the process that's going to happen. You need to look and see if this 6 can be factored out of all of the other terms. But here, negative 11 and 4 are not divisible by 6, so I can't take a GCF out. Here, we're going to have to use the cross again. In the cross, you're going to have to look for numbers that multiply to get 24. Now, where did I get that 24? That is from A times C. Multiply A times C to get 24. And again, in the bottom, we're left with our value B of negative 11. And we're going to do the exact same thing we've been doing. What multiplies to get 24 adds together to get negative 11. Hopefully, you can do this in your head. But what multiplies to get 24? 1 and 24, negative 1 and negative 24, 2 and 12, negative 2, negative 12, 3 and 8, negative 3, negative 8, 4 and 6, negative 4, negative 6. And those are all of our possible ways. Now, what multiplies to get positive 24 adds together to get negative 11? Well, hopefully you already figured that out with negative 3 and negative 8. So we have negative 3 and negative 8. Now the next thing we have to do is we have to do what I would tell my students, call it divide and slide. In dividing and sliding, we take the value of A and we take both of our numbers and divide them by 6. And here, we would have to simplify these fractions. Now, if I rewrite this cross down here, what is negative 3/6 going to become? Well, that'll be negative 1/2. And 8/6 will be negative 4/3. Now we're going to take, normally we would say x minus 1/2, but we're going to take this bottom number, and that is going to be the coefficient for our x. So this means this will be 2x minus 1. Notice where we got the 2 in the denominator, and we put it right in front. We slid that in front of the x. And so we have 2x minus 1 as well as 3x minus 4. Now when it comes to factoring trinomials, I hope that you've learned something today, but at the same time, watching videos isn't enough. You have to actively do problems. You have to actively do work. Don't just say you watched a video and that's enough. Do the work, do the math. All math is hard until you know what you're doing. Thank you for watching.